Tell me everything that you see.
A guy who was something out of the ditch.
What was he pulling out of the ditch?
A girl.
This is 10-year-old Todd Terrell. 3 days before this footage was recorded, Todd was playing in the backyard when he heard gunshots. He became curious and started walking towards them. As he came closer, Todd saw something he should never have seen.
What do you see?
Floor chair. Open his back. Fire in the car.
That day, Todd witnessed a nightmare that would be known as the worst case of cold murder St. Joseph County has ever seen.
Everybody to the quarter turn to the right.
And at only 10 years old, he will become the only person who can solve this mystery and finally put an end to the killer's reign of terror.
The boy was probably our only witness at that point. He was critical to this case.
The year is 1985. In the small and rural area of Three Rivers, Linda Buskirk lives happily with her 2 little children. On one particular early spring day, not knowing what's about to happen, the 26-year-old mother asks her parents to watch the kids as she sets out for her walk.
But when it got dark, she did not reappear to pick up her children.
The idea that Linda would neglect picking up her daughters is beyond uncharacteristic. It just would not happen.
Concerned, Paul and Evelyn Jacobs reach out to friends and neighbors, desperately seeking any information about their daughter's whereabouts. With no leads, they decide to involve the authorities. On March 26th, they filed a report.
March 26th, we received a complaint of a missing person out in the county.
Immediately, there's a sense of panic in the air because her life is very clean. No trouble, no drinking, no drugs. She has been going to church every Sunday. Truly a model citizen. Linda's parents are beside themselves with worry. They give the detective a detailed description of Linda and a photo. They're dead sure Linda had her walking routine. Same time, same route, never missed. The authorities go to the trial the next day.
The road she was walking on was rural. No street lights, no commercial enterprises, farm fields, woods, houses not very close together.
Neighbors confirm seeing Linda, but that's all the information they have. But then, they speak with a man residing close to the intersection. This intersection is merely about 1.5 miles away from Linda's house. He informs them that just yesterday, his son heard gunshots. Intriguingly, the boy went up a nearby hill from their home and peered down at the intersection. What he witnessed was disturbing. A car stationed there with a man hurriedly stashing something in its trunk.
Did you hear him?
Hmm?
What did you hear?
I heard some gunshots.
Okay, all right, slow down just a little bit. So you went to the top of the hill by the tree, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can see the road there.
Yes.
Did you see anybody?
Yes.
The little local boy, Todd, recounts being outside when he heard gunfire and spotted someone dragging what appeared to be a deer toward a vehicle. Right from the get-go, the investigators are dead serious about the possibility of this being linked to a missing person case. They're betting on Todd, the 10-year-old, to tell them information that could lead them straight to Linda.
This is the deposition of Frank Todd Terrell. Deposition is also being videotaped.
How did you know they were gunshots?
Because my dad, we used to go hunting in that. It was pulling something out of the ditch.
Pulling something out of the ditch. You said you thought it was a deer, right?
Yes.
So what he was dragging was behind the car when you saw it the first time.
No, it was beside the car.
The boy said he saw a man in a dark hatchback.
When the interrogation is over, investigators ask Todd to lead them to the precise location where he witnessed the vehicle and the deer. On March 29th, 1985, the police visited the crime scene.
Today's date is March 29th, 1985. We're at the intersection of Zion, Benton Road. This will be a general view of the crime scene.
Firstly, Todd takes them to the place from where he saw the scene. Investigators conclude that Linda's route would have passed through this very intersection.
This is a view from the viewpoint of where the witness stood.
Then, they proceed to the spot indicated by the boy as the location of the car. As they stroll along this road, approximately 15 feet away from it, attention is drawn to a patch of blood. It's a sizable amount, spanning about 12 to 15 inches in diameter. However, they're uncertain if it's from an animal or a human at the moment. To resolve the mystery, the blood will be analyzed. Carefully, forensics gather samples from the spot. The next thing they notice are shell casings nearby. Upon examination, they realize that the brass casing matches a jacketed hollow-point bullet. This finding corroborates Todd's story. Investigators immediately send out a county-wide alert, urging everyone to be on the lookout for a dark hatchback. They're stopping drivers, requesting permission to inspect their trunks for any signs of a deer. They suspect the hunter might have spotted Linda, so finding him is crucial. With this information, Todd emerges as a crucial witness. As time slips away, the decision to hypnotize him is swiftly made, and the parents give their consent.
Like we call Todd, all the nerves. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is try to be as comfortable as possible. You set that cord like this and hold it up, and I want you to stare at that cord. And while you're staring, I'm going to talk. Tell me everything that you see.
A guy pulling something out of the ditch.
What was he pulling out of the ditch?
A girl.
Todd said that there was this struggle with a man and a woman out on the road near his house.
Tell me what it looks like and what you see. What do you see?
Brown shoes and long hair.
Todd recounts a tense scene unfolding outside his home. A man and a woman are grappling by the roadside. Whatever was loaded into the truck wasn't an innocent deer. Hypnosis validates investigators' suspicions, and a new theory is made by the police. Linda disappeared, and they think that the man Todd saw pulling something into his truck has something to do with her disappearance. Todd definitely heard some gunshots, but at this point, it's hard to say if Linda is dead or only missing. The hunt for the dark hatchback intensifies as nearby counties receive alerts and more volunteers join the effort. They're gathering all law enforcement agencies together. The news of her disappearance has spread far and wide thanks to newspapers and word of mouth. People are keeping an eye out for anything suspicious. Everyone is on the lookout. But despite all efforts, the car is nowhere to be found. The question mark is still hovering over Linda's ex-husband, Bruce. Could he be involved in the incident somehow?
They had a rough divorce, and then you add the fact that he was a police officer for the city of Three Rivers.
The bullet casings found at the scene match the type law enforcement officers typically use. It's undeniably suspicious. Bruce swears he was out on patrol when Linda disappeared, but there's no solid evidence backing up his story. He remains high on the list of suspects.
We never forgot him or put him on the back burner. We just waited to see how he was going to react.
As the young mother remains missing for over 3 days, anxiety heightens with the arrival of the blood report from the crime lab. The analysis verifies the suspicions, linking the discovered blood to what Todd witnessed at the intersection. Suddenly, the investigation transforms into a homicide case. Now, detectives are immersed in a frantic hunt to locate the firearm.
Every certified officer that carries a weapon, we're going to take his weapon, take it to the crime lab, and check for ballistics.
Meanwhile, investigators rely on the eyewitness to help them identify the man he spotted on the road. Todd sits down with a sketch artist, and they create a drawing together.
Do you remember this man that you saw at the car?
Yeah.
Do you remember what this man's hair looked like, Todd?
Yeah. He had his hair curved around.
What do you mean curved the wrong way?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Does that look like him? Okay.
A sketch based on the eyewitness account of a young boy is released and circulated locally. Meanwhile, Linda Buskirk, a 26-year-old mother, is still missing, but evidence collected from the crime scene suggests foul play. Unfortunately, the man in the sketch remains unidentified at the moment. In the meantime, Officer Bruce Buskirk is under investigation. He's a prime suspect. His tough divorce from Linda sparks a possible motive. Recently, they've also been fighting over custody matters. However, the results of the ballistic analyses soon come in. The bullets discovered near the road don't match Officer Buskirk's firearm. While there's a possibility he used a different gun, there's no solid evidence linking him to the crime. Investigators now shift their focus to another individual in the area who had a close relationship with Linda, Jim Brainey.
Jim Briney was the owner of the property that Linda was living at.
Who is this guy and why is he talking to Linda Van Buskirk? So they get him in and they treat him quite harshly.
However, in the end, investigators verify that Jim was out of town on the day Linda Van Buskirk disappeared. With time slipping by, it seems investigators have reached a loose end, and the hope of finding Linda seems to fade. But then, in late spring, a frantic call comes in from a man who has discovered something strange. In the small and rural area of Cologne, Michigan, a telephone technician begins his regular day. As he surveys poles and lines, ensuring everything's in order, something catches his eye on the ground. It's dark and wet, and upon closer inspection, he spots what seems like a pair of blue jeans just inches below the surface. With a sinking feeling, he realizes he's stumbled upon decomposing flesh. Immediately, he decides to contact the police. As soon as the call comes in, every cop, sheriff, and detective in town rushes to the scene. When Detective Robin Baker arrives there, the technician leads him back, pointing out the spot. The technician can see the belt, the skin, and the fabric, and the smell hits him instantly. The grave is shallow, and he can make out the body lying face down, and that's all he can see at the moment.
When the crime lab got there, the body was exhumed.
And they opened the ground and the flies just came swarming out.
The crime scene investigators rush in to start their investigation. They meticulously sift through the soil, searching for clues. It takes hours to carefully unearth the body, even though the grave isn't deep. Upon closer inspection, they realize it's the body of a woman.
I could tell it was a white female. The body was face down. You could not identify her from the body, buried that long.
The clothing matches the peculiar missing persons report the police received 8 weeks ago from across the county. The body was sent to the autopsy. After some lab tests, the forensics conclude that the person found at the scene is a 26-year-old missing woman, Linda Van Buskirk.
She had been shot 3 times.
The first bullet that hit her was in her arm. The second bullet was shot through her shoulder. The final shot was on the left side of her skull, straight through the other side.
Based on the angles of where the bullets came through the body, the pathologist presumes that Linda was lying on the floor while the cold-blooded killer finished her.
So she was down on the ground. He walked up and finished her off.
This was not something that was done in a fit of rage or self-defense or anything else. It was a terrible murder. It was an execution.
This isn't a crime of passion or self-defense. It's cold-blooded murder. Examining the crime scene, investigators sense there's more to this shallow grave than meets the eye. It seems like someone hastily buried her, perhaps indicating a rush to conceal the body. Detectives conclude that the spot where the body is buried is not something you just stumble upon. It's a spot only locals would know. Whoever's behind this comes from this area.
We knew it was somebody that was familiar with this area, including 2 tracks that go back into some pretty desolate spots.
Driven by the need for justice, they zero in on a secluded burial spot, roughly 4 miles away from town. It seems whoever buried her was in a rush. The area's rugged with few signs of activity. The authorities now hope someone from the locals can help them with any kind of information. After days of questioning the locals, by some miracle they find just the right information. In the village of Colette, the gas station attendant's wife claims she spotted Ricky Moore on the day Linda Van Buskirk disappeared.
Ricky Moore's father, Larry Moore, was a sergeant at the sheriff's department. Ricky was a reserve deputy for Mendon.
Police uncover that Ricky lives with his parents in the nearby city, not far from the intersection where Todd saw Linda get killed. But there's more to their story. They also have a little cottage up in Cologne. The sheriff's department interviews him multiple times, and he always cooperates with the officers.
Are you familiar with Bruce Van Buskirk?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, he bought my old car.
Oh, I see. Did you know Linda then?
No, sir.
Did you ever met her? Or?
No, sir.
Ricky Moore informs investigators that he was at his parents' cabin in Cologne on the night of the disappearance. He claims he went there to check for any signs of a break-in. Law enforcement is looking for a dark hatchback, but Ricky doesn't have one.
Well, as you know, we're looking for a dark-colored hatchback type vehicle. Do you have one of those?
Not a hatchback, no, sir. We got a Chevy S10 pickup.
Ricky allows them to search his car. They find no blood. However, detectives aren't ruling him out yet. Linda's body was found near Colon, and Ricky, being an auxiliary police officer with access to firearms, became a suspect. After the interview, Sergeant Moore, his father, picks him up and they head home. Although Ricky thinks he's safe now, investigators are close behind.
We went to the house, knocked on the door, and we said, we're here to get the gun.
He was very hesitant. His demeanor changed dramatically.
He stalls and stalls until his dad loses his temper and orders him upstairs to fetch the gun. Eventually, he returns, looking pale as a ghost, sweating profusely. He hands over the gun. As the detective sergeants exit the house, they exchange a glance and silently acknowledge what we've witnessed.
We looked at each other and said, did you see what I saw? I said, I sure did. Get that gun to the lab today.
Quickly, they send the gun for testing. In the meantime, the investigators decide to act on his resistance and obtain a warrant to search his home. They enter his bedroom, where they stumble upon owl point bullets. It's another piece of evidence, but it's not the smoking gun that proves he's a murderer. Upon close examination, the firearms expert reveals that whoever had this gun attempted to tamper with the barrel, trying to cover their tracks. There are a few stray fragments lodged inside.
Can you explain how the gun become damaged? Trying to clean the lead out of it. Just a piece? A couple pieces of lead. A couple pieces lodged in the barrel? Right. And you told me that you used a screwdriver to clean this piece of lead out? Right.
Also, a screwdriver was used to dislodge a piece of lead, further complicating the weapon's analysis. However, what Ricky Moore doesn't know, there's an eyewitness to the crime. Todd Terrell, a local boy. Investigators now question him about whether he can pick out the man he spotted on the road from a lineup.
Today's date is 5/17 of 85.
I'm going to ask you to...
They bring the boy in and ask him to make an identification. Todd looks through the window, but it's one-way glass, so only he can see. Unfortunately, Todd shakes his head, unable to spot the person who had been at the intersection in the lineup.
Everybody take a quarter turn to the right. Once again, quarter turn to the right.
Even Todd's sketch of the suspect doesn't resemble the man from the lineup, but that doesn't mean he didn't spot him. He just couldn't get a good look at the man 200 yards away. Now, the only hope in resolving the case is the ballistics tests from Ricky's gun. Then, the moment of truth arrives. Testing reveals a match. The bullets found at the crime scene are from Ricky Moore's weapon. With that, other suspects are ruled out. Now, they're certain they have enough evidence to charge Ricky Moore. Quickly, law enforcement arrives at his house and gets him in handcuffs. Even as he's being charged with murder, Ricky Moore maintains his innocence.
One of those rounds recovered come from your gun. Can't be. It's a positive identification. There is absolutely no doubt. And now we're at a gunfight on the hill.
And his parents seem to believe him. In a bid to prove himself innocent, Ricky Moore agrees to undergo a polygraph test with the examiner. As Ricky Moore denies killing Linda Van Buskirk, the polygraph test reveals otherwise. Upon completion, the polygraph examiner confronts him, puzzled by his actions. His attorney and father enter the room, and suddenly Ricky cries.
And he starts confessing.
I heard Ricky scream out to his dad, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
He confesses to the crime, expressing his remorse to his father. With Ricky in handcuffs, investigators can only speculate on his motive. Often the motive can be of a sexual nature, and Ricky was a loner. It's also worth noting that Ricky bought a car from Linda's husband, Bruce. Although the motive isn't clear, it's believed that Ricky, from the moment he saw Linda, was fascinated by her, stalking her relentlessly. When she rejected his advances, he snapped and ended her life. Despite pleading not guilty because of insanity, the prosecutors build a compelling case against him, presenting irrefutable evidence. Suspicion mounts as he hesitates to surrender the murder weapon, even tampering with it to hinder identification. But forensic analysis linked the gun to the fatal bullets that took Linda Van Buskirk's life. Then, on May 13, 1986, the judge delivered the final verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. The evidence presented leaves no doubt in Judge Korsha's mind. Ricky Moore meticulously planned and executed Linda's murder. In Michigan, the punishment for such a crime is life behind bars, without the possibility of parole. As we speak, Ricky Moore is serving a life sentence at the Muskegon Correctional Facility in Michigan. For more videos of cases like this, subscribe and leave a like. Thank you for watching.